We're now in the first week of July 2016, so it's time for another monthly update video in which I talk about what went on during the month of June and what we've got coming up in the month of July. So, as usual, I like to begin by talking about three big things, putting these on your radar from the start. I'll talk more about them as we go deeper into the discussion of June and July. But the first big thing is we have a new class coming out with Reason.io, entirely online. Epictetus's Enchiridion and Discourses, two texts that I've been working with for over 20 years. I've taught in classroom settings and online for quite a long time. Starting July 24th, it's enrolling. We've already filled up some of the seats, so I'm very excited about that, but more about that later. The second big thing is that in the half-hour Hegel project, which you might know I've been doing for now about 2.5 years, producing these half-hour-long videos going through eventually the entirety of Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit. We are now right about here. So we're starting a new section, and so that's always a lot of fun. And this is a really interesting section in which Hegel is going to tackle some of the pseudosciences of his time, physiognomy and phrenology. But it's got some very important implications for contemporary, let's not call them pseudosciences quite yet. But so the third thing then is that back in June, I gave a talk in which I made an excursion into a field that, for me, I've had a long-standing interest in, but I haven't done any presentations in up until this point, and that is gastronomy. I gave a talk and a tasting on the that's 8, not 4, but 8 basic tastes of food that were recognized in the Western tradition from Aristotle all the way up until about the 18th century. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So what went on during the month of June? I didn't get quite as much done as I had hoped for or planned to, in significant part because my kids were here for the summer, so we did a lot of family things. I cut back on most days to no more than 4 hours of work per day. And given that I'm usually putting in anywhere from 8 to 14, that's a significant reduction. We also had some family medical issues arise during the month as well, so that took up quite a bit of time. I did give a number of talks, most of which you can actually see on the videos that I've linked to here. The first one was in that science fiction and fantasy series that I've been doing with the Brookfield Public Library as my yearly series, and it was on Frank Herbert's Dune universe. We had some great attendance. We also had somebody bring some of the original copies of the analog magazine in which the Dune novel was serialized. So that was really cool. Then we had a half-hour Hegel online Q&A session. We do that monthly as well. Some great discussion. And towards the end of the month, we had the 8 basic tastes of food hosted by the Whitefish Bay Library. We actually didn't just deliver an academic talk or a popular talk. This was much more oriented towards a popular audience. We did a tasting with it, and you can watch the video for that. I also put a link to the blog entry that I wrote discussing that. And if you want, you can replicate the tasting yourself by finding the items that we used for it, contemporary items that are pretty easy to find. And then towards the very end of the month, I went to a conference here in Milwaukee at Marquette University, just down the street from us. The Aristotle and Aristotelian Tradition Conference. It was really great. I met a lot of people, including some big names who I've been reading for years and years. And I also presented my own research there. I didn't have the paper completely finished, so I presented some of it in the form of notes. and it was on Aristotle's views on acrasia, or that is lack of self-control, with respect to anger. So that was a great occasion. As far as coursework goes, we've finished our Aristotle Nicomachean Ethics online class. We'll be offering that again later on, but for the present, what I'm concentrating on is the Plato Symposium class that I'm currently teaching, and then getting the Epictetus class ready to roll. We open it up a little bit ahead of time so people can poke around in there. Video work, I only got 3 half-hour Hegel videos done, but that's okay because I closed out that section in Observing Reason, which only required 3 videos. I've been releasing the Aristotle Core Concept videos. I also finished releasing the last of the Anselm Monologion videos as well. And we took videos of the events with the exception of the acrasia due to anger talk, which really wouldn't have fit in well to try to video record that. I engaged in some philosophical counseling and some coaching, no tutoring, because I think people are kind of done with that for the summer, but I'm sure that will be picking up quite a bit in the fall. And we've done a bit of planning, but that's really about the bulk of what went on during June. So in many respects, as far as work goes, kind of a slow month. So what's coming up for the month of July? We've got several different talks, all of which are either here or online. I'll be doing a talk July 14th, that's Bastille Day, at 7 p.m. at the Brookfield Public Library in that science fiction and fantasy series, this time talking about Roger Zelazny's Chronicles of Amber, the first 5 books, although I'm sure some people will have come and have read all the rest of them and the prequels and all that. And I'm talking about Amber and Chaos. And I'm tying it together with some themes from Neoplatonist philosophy and from Nietzsche. So that should be quite interesting. July 20th, 5 p.m. Central Time. The reason I mentioned Central Time is because this is an online event, so most people are not in this time zone. We will be having our half-hour Hegel public Q&A session. So, if you've got any Hegel-related questions, anything you're confused about, and if you're reading Hegel, you probably ought to be confused about something, because he is pretty confusing. Come to the session, and I'll field whatever questions I can. I'm always happy to help out that way. July 27th, another local event here with the Wauwatosa Library. I was asked to come back and give another talk on existentialism. So the first talk we gave, I think, back in March. It was sort of a general overview of who were the existentialists. This time I'm going to focus on a key theme within existentialism, the relationship between anxiety and human freedom. So we'll be talking, as you can guess, about some Kierkegaard, some Heidegger, some Sartre, but other people as well. So that's going to be quite interesting. Probably, I don't have it in the event description, but we'll smuggle in some Shestov, because I always like to do him. Courses, we're finishing up the Plato Symposium course, which has been going quite well. We're in week 3 right now, and we should be finishing up week 4 by the midpoint of the month. Then we're starting the Epictetus Enchiridion and Discourses course. That's a 6-week online course. Starting July 24th with an introductory session. The class meets for class sessions on Saturdays, and I actually schedule them at 2 different times in the day so that people in different time zones or with different kinds of work schedules can make it to those classes. There's a link below if you're interested in enrolling in the class, in finding out more about the class, or in getting on our mailing list to find out about future course offerings. We're going to be giving a lot of these. in the future, not just on the ones we've done before, but Nietzsche is coming up, Kant is coming up, Anselm is coming up, all sorts of cool things going on. In any case, the Epictetus class, getting ready to start that, and I imagine we'll probably get a significant demand. So we might even consider opening up a second section if there's sufficient demand for the class. Some writing projects I've got going on. So I'm working right now still on the last bits of a Stoicism Today post, which will be coming out later this week, on Epictetus and dealing with one's own anger. I did a post on other people's anger, and now it's time to talk about one's own anger. Got some stuff coming out in Orexis Dia Noetique, a blog that I started years ago, and I have not been able to spend as much time on as I would have liked, but now I'm getting it back in gear. Half Hour Hegel, I've got some interesting content coming up in there, including the follow-up piece about Hegel and Stoicism. I'm going to be hopefully blogging a bit for the Partially Examined Life as well. And I'm working on some academic projects as well. I'm trying to get some work done on the Aristotle and Anger book. I'm working on a more popularly oriented book that I've got in sort of skeletal form on Aristotle and the Virtues. I've got to get the article done on acrosia due to anger, and I have a long overdue piece that I presented and I'm still reworking. I presented it back in the fall, and I owe it to the Marcel people on Gabriel Marcel and Jean-Paul Sartre as existentialist interlocutors. So I'll be working on those things over the course of the month. Got some coaching and philosophical counseling appointments already lined up, and I imagine that the calendar is going to start filling up with more of those. So we've got quite a few of these things going on, some through Reason.io, some through Priority Thinking. Very happy. It's a part of the profession that I really enjoy. I should probably do a video about that down the line, about just what is philosophical counseling, what is coaching, and why do I particularly enjoy it. But I'll just sort of leave it at that. So that is pretty much the plan for the month ahead. This is a somewhat shorter video, again, in part because I'll be spending less time on academic and other professional pursuits and a bit more time engaged with some family things and some just, downtime and fun. But there's actually quite a bit lined up for the month ahead. And then August is going to be a really major month for us, so we're gearing up and doing some planning and laying groundwork for that. So hope you're enjoying your summer time, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, your winter, and have a good month.